Next, we want to talk about a very important coding clinic that talks about the foundation of documentation. And first and foremost, I mean, you know the answer to this even as you read it. Is there a guideline or rule that indicates you should only use medical record documentation for that specific visit, for diagnosis coding purposes, visits, and even now, even from here, I can hear you all shouting yes. Does each visit or admission stand alone? Again, you're all shouting yes, of course. You know the answer to these questions. Would the coder go back to previous encounters records to assist in the coding of a current visit or admission? And the answer is a resounding no. But let's have a look at why this is the case based on the answer. The documentation for the current encounter should clearly reflect the diagnoses that are current and relevant for that encounter. It sets forth the documentation principle. The next two paragraphs talk a little bit about problems with the electronic, allude to problems with the electronic record, and that cutting and pasting sometimes bring forth historical problems that are not necessarily relevant for that visit. And lastly, it's the physician's responsibility to determine the diagnosis. It assigns responsibility. And next to the last line, the recurring conditions should be documented in the medical record with each encounter, and that's wishful thinking, but that is the way it should be, optimistically speaking. The real answer to this question is, however, if the condition is not documented in the current health record, it is not correct to go back to previous encounters to retrieve the diagnosis without physician confirmation. And a query would be sufficient. An appropriately worded, carried out query process could help you in that respect. The next paragraph, this is an area where it really alludes to the need for physician documentation and tells us how to go about doing it. And lastly, that this advice applies to both ICD-9 and ICD-10 to provide, again, a smooth transition from reporting in 9 into 10, meaning the source documentation in 9 is the same as it is in 10, and that aspect has not specifically changed. So again, speaks to the foundation of the basics of documentation principles and coding principles. So we always start there just to get everyone onto the same page.